I'd like to call this meeting to order, please. All that can stand. Please note that this meeting will be recorded by Zoom for the purpose of taking minutes on Dalton cable TV. We're meeting person to make this meeting available by Zoom for the convenience of the public. We will not be responsible for any technical difficulties. So if you'd like to be sure of participating, please attend in person. Dan, please, the pledge.
Sure thing. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll do a roll call, please.
Yes, I'm here. Here. Here.
Here, and Mark's in the room.
And Mark Collins.
I have no idea. He's on the roof. Okay. Okay, first on the agenda is minutes of February 10th, 2025.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes from February 10th, 2025 as presented. Second.
Okay, motion been made second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, next are the minutes of February 24th, 2025.
Okay. We'll wait for
Yeah,
Mr. Stroud to get seated.
second minutes.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes from February 24th, 2025 as presented. Second.
Okay, motion been made second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Abstain. I was absent.
And the minutes from March 3rd, 2025.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the minutes from March 3rd, 2025 as presented. Second.
Okay, motion been made second. Is there any further corrections? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
All right. Agenda review.
Okay, yes. It has been asked to put number 8 at the start of the meeting right after the.
Is
there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that Article 8 on the agenda be placed ahead of Article 10.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, motion been made second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Public address to the board. I'm gonna take these stupid things out. This time when the public may address the board on any item listed on the meeting agenda or any issue or matter of the town. If you intend to comment on an item listed on the meeting agenda, please do so at this time, as we will not be taking comments from the audience when the item comes up for board discussion. The public address to the board segment will last no longer than 30 minutes. Each individual will be given up to 3 minutes. If you intend on addressing the board, we ask you to do the following. Please raise your hand by being recognized by the chair. Please step up to the podium and speak into the microphone, which is working. Please identify yourself by name, address, or the company/institution you represent. Please address your comments to the board chair. Please make your comments concise and not try to repeat statements made by others. Discussions or debate on any issue may not take place at this time. The chair or the designee may answer questions on procedural matters. Is there anyone that would like to speak ahead of time? Henry?
Henry Rose, North Mountain Road.
The podium, please. Right here.
Henry Rose, North Mountain Road, I'd like to make 2 comments. One is, on the national stage, we're hearing about how gas pipelines might be getting reproposed. As you recall, several years ago, we fought against the Northeast Direct Pipeline. And I just want to comment, with plenty of time ahead of time, to say I'm totally opposed to having a pipeline go through our town if that ever comes up again. And to remind you that the last time that the Northeast Direct was proposed, the select board initially gave permission for the company that was proposing the pipeline Kinder Morgan to be allowed to survey on town lands. And then the majority of townspeople that I knew were outraged at the special town meeting, as I recall, and that permission was withdrawn. I want to say, we're now is legal, not with permission, if the bill comes up, whenever it comes up, to allow surveying on town lands. We shouldn't make it easy for a company to carve a ditch through our town, to lay pipes that eventually leak, to have compressor stations, to release leaking gas with its contaminants into our atmosphere, to accelerate climate change, and for the good of their profits going to drink it, to ship it overseas for liquid natural gas. It's a fallacy that will lower our gas prices. So please, if it's ever proposed, please do not allow surveying on town lands. The gas company wants to lay pipe through our town. The other comment I'd like to make is I see that we were talking about a possible Proposition 2.5% override. I just need to say that the town made certain decisions in the past that I regret. We should have been told years ago that our police station is a hellhole and that we're going to need to fix that eventually. Instead, we built this building, which I think would have been better substituted by the rental of one of the nice churches in town. We'll go empty 6 days a week. We never should have helped this building in my opinion. And in addition, the new school. We should have fixed the old school, which would cost a lot less instead of building that new school. And again, we should have said we need to realize that the police station is a hellhole and we're going to have to replace that at huge costs. Instead, some decisions were made that I very much regret. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Anyone else? Okay. Robert and Mark, we moved number 8 up before 7. Okay. Okay, number 8, Town Manager Screening Committee members. Mr. Hester.
Mr. Chairman, I move that I'm going to take this in 2 motions, actually, so just bear with me.
Okay.
I understand that, you're an employee, Mr. Kelly, so we'll take that with 2 motions. The first will be for 4, and then the other will be for 1. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the appointment of Lori Martinelli, Malia Carlotto, John Bartels, and Deborah Mary to the Town Manager Screening Committee.
Second.
Okay. The motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Right.
Can I ask one?
Yes.
One of the committee met to appoint these people or decide these people?
I was asked to bring names to it. Everybody submitted the names. And that's what that was sort of going.
So you picked the 5?
Oh, John and I did. Yeah.
You and John picked the 5. Okay.
Okay.
I'm just going to add, Mr. Chairman, we did it along with the help of the audience who proposed many members and many members that were suggested that volunteered were incorporated to that list and were chosen for the committee.
Okay, yeah, and I just want to read something before we take the vote from our town lawyer. It said, the select board shall, within 30 days of the effective date of this act, appoint a 5-member screening committee to assist the board by screening all applications for the position of town manager and by submitting the board a list of at least 3 qualified applicants to be interviewed by the select board. From this group of candidates, the select board shall appoint a town manager. The screening committee duties will be terminated upon the town manager's appointment. In Tim's opinion, this provision does not require to consider a complete list of residents interested in being part of the committee, discuss the candidates, or select the most capable to perform search. The board has discretion in deciding how to appoint members to the screening committee. It may do so by formally posting a notice seeking applicants for the committee, or it may take nominations from the public, which we have, or members of the select board, which we did. Additionally, any member of the board may reach out, which they did, to individuals and invite them to apply for a seat on the committee. The only requirement for the appointment process is that it take place in open session under the open meeting law.
Question?
No. Yeah. All right, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed. Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the appointment of John Kelly to the Town Manager Screening Committee.
Second.
So a motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Not abstained. Okay, so it's done.
Okay.
Okay. Now, item number 7. Thank you for everybody for doing that. Thank you, John. Thank you for the public for that.
I'm trying to be on vacation, Bob. That's why I out there.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay. Town manager search RFP firms funding and related items. Mr. Hutchinson.
Yes, I have several good examples of the RFP. I have not been able to draft one for Dalton yet, but expect to be able to do that this week and get it out. I do have at least 3 firms to get it out to that are well known within the Commonwealth. And so that process should be in here very soon. I've also asked the Finance Committee for a reserve fund transfer to be able to
My personal opinion is you should convene the committee you just appointed first and ask their views on getting extra assistance. Perhaps they think they're very capable of handling the problem without bringing in a forum. So I think, we all agree that you could be on the right track, but you should consult the committee first.
I disagree. I don't believe committees formed to conduct the actual search itself, but to rather field resumes and narrow the resume pool down. It's my understanding.
Yeah,
Are they going to be soliciting resumes?
It was my understanding the select board wanted me to go ahead with the search.
Yeah,
first.
that was one, yes.
Yeah,
I've pursued that path.
I think they should both be parallel paths.
Yes, I think one thing that the search fund can advise on right away is the question of advertising for a permanent town administrator, which I believe is the select board's intent. And if they have any qualifications to that, to say, well, actually, and I'm going to call for in this case, that they would provide that advice to the select board. I'd like to leave that open in the RFP to say your advice will be sought for, initially to tell the select board if you think this search can be conducted in a timely way. Just because I want to I have as many options as possible.
To get this procedure rolling, I mean, we have a broad plan that we would like to get someone in place.
Yeah.
In a training type session, by mid-June, you retire in July 1st, right? Mm-hmm. And avoid this interim town manager, town administrator.
I agree that's preferable.
Yeah, but
To get them some flexible.
I just, you are what we call the facilitator. In other words, you will get a recording secretary from the committee. When you plan on convening the first committee and giving the committee their charge.
Well, John, one thing that Lori will usually, or somebody will contact the 5 members
Yeah.
and get a screenshot when they can meet what's
Yeah,
suggested.
well, that's what I'm asking, if you had a date in mind. The sooner the better. I guess that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, the sooner the better.
You're chopping at the bit, I can tell, right, Laura?
I think that the committee will work with the search firm, but I don't believe that the committee should be in charge of hiring a search firm or be involved in that. The select board should just make this, well, we do the RFP, every request for proposals, and the town manager brings forward the most reasonable proposal that the select board can vote on.
Correct.
I don't really see the search screening committee being involved in selecting a firm. No. So that's my view on it.
I know the one, the Paradigm Group in there, if you pick them for your town manager search, they will find us an intern for free. Minus the salary, but they will not charge for finding an intern person for short term.
I think for me personally also, I agree with everything Dan said. Is I'm not willing to sacrifice competency over timeliness. Right. So I'd rather have good quality candidates And if we have to have an interim, then so be it. You know, if it takes us a couple months into the new fiscal year, so be it. But I definitely want a competent town manager.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, do we have clear direction?
Yeah, still confused. Okay, he's good.
Okay, is there anything else? Okay, FY '26 budget planning and presentations.
You have the vocational education budget and everything now. This is, as always, an estimate. We do not know even how many school children have signed up for a vocational school. The deadline may not long. So that's one of the variables. Aside from that, we do know that there are considerably more students currently than we had expected, and so you'll notice there's a substantial cost increase of almost $240,000 for next year.
On the flip side of this, Tom, do we have people coming in from Pittsfield schools, Dalton schools, or wherever from other towns?
If we did, they would not make up for the cost, and that would be for the Central Berkshire Regional School District. It wouldn't be under this line item for vocational.
Right, but I mean, there are students that come to Dalton. Now, well, just not Dalton kids going other places, there's also people from other towns coming to Dalton schools.
They're coming to Central Berkshire School.
Yes. And we get money for them
We
coming.
do get some, it's not a lot
Okay.
per student.
The town doesn't though, right? So it would be the district.
The district gets, and so it offsets the cost.
Sure.
Does the district get the same amount that we're getting charged?
No, the district gets considerably less per student than we pay vocational schools to take our students.
I look at this a little differently in that if there's 35 students who are choosing vocational education as their career path or their educational path, then there's 35 less students going to Central Berkshire School, do we know what the per person or tuition cost is per student at Central Berkshire? Just to compare the two, out of curiosity?
I don't have that figure in my head, sorry.
That's okay.
Be interested.
That'd be a good figure to have, just to compare to, so the voters can see, all right, so, there's 35 students at a tuition cost, which you can see here, it's $18,860 estimated for Taconic, $19,325 estimated at McCann, and $20,847 estimated at Smith. So if we can see the corresponding per pupil cost at Central Berkshire, I think that voters could see, the difference in cost and understand the numbers a little better. We're obligated to allow students to choose this, so there's not much choice in that, as my understanding.
Right.
So.
Okay.
So it is what it is. Total budget is $813,191. That's an increase of $239,951 over the prior fiscal year. That's a TA for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sewer treatment, we've gotten the bill from Pittsfield. Again, it's a substantial increase of $128. $181,128 for a total of $1,728,380. You can see how the costs have been steadily adding, substantially rising, $200,000 a year roughly since FY22. So this does not change that pattern right now. It's a little under $200,000.
Was this the last one? They're gonna surcharge us for all the new equipment change, upgrades they had to make?
I believe we have one more year.
Okay. So this is a budget of $1,728,380. That's an increase of $181,128 from the prior fiscal year. And this is primarily attributed to the intergovernmental sewer agreement and the billings, the actual billings from the city of Pittsfield, which have just about doubled in the course of 5 years, mainly due to infrastructure upgrades in the facility that they are passing that cost on to us in the form of the usage charges, and that should stabilize in another year. Well, one more fiscal year and beyond, and it should stabilize.
I have a couple more questions. Was a stormwater study ever done for infiltration to the sewers?
Yes,
Now, didn't they patch that all up, so we're not getting stormwater in there?
yes, we should see some savings from that. I don't believe we're going to see too much of an effect on the bill. It will be in the order of tens of thousands of dollars, not in the order of hundreds of thousands.
There's also a lot of people that stuck their sump pumps in the sewer too. That raises the cost.
And I believe
It's not
that
supposed to be doing that.
it's not allowed by the town's bylaws. And
No, it's not.
if we have specific instances where we know it's happening, then we can follow up.
Okay.
Now you sump up another big issue is roof drains.
Yes, that too.
The buildings that are hooked directly into the sewer, the water that runs out.
And this is all metered, guys? I know, I knew one that shit.
Yeah, we did it.
This is all metered? Okay.
Based on flow, yeah.
Okay.
But there's a few isolated houses in Greenwich Park that are built on an individual basis, whatever the city of Pittsfield charges for a single-family dwelling.
Okay.
But it's just a handful.
But majority of this is.
Yes.
So
These are the town line.
It's Kingsdale's metered into us, so we got a bad church Kingsdale too, so.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
That said, this is paid for through the sewer rate, which means it doesn't go onto the town's operating budget, but it will go onto the town's sewer budget, and there will be a substantial increase again this year in that sewer rate.
Okay.
Well, Andy, you know what it is this year? It's 5 something, I think.
I don't know.
Know the number.
GA?
Yeah, I mean, it's an unavoidable cost as well. When you look at the town of Lenox, say here they're investing $45 million.
I saw that.
Water and sewer treatment facility. You know, with that level of infrastructure investment and the price that the town of Dalton has to pay for the intergovernmental sewer agreement, I think is reasonable when you compare. And again, we're just catching up and paying a higher cost now for those upgrades that they did to the system. So, TA for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just like to thank Sammy O'Brien for working over the weekend to get this done, so we could get it going here.
For the Central Regional School District, but we have just the bottom line figures here. They were unavailable to me, and they will be unavailable to me until April 14th. So they will come in, and my understanding is that Dalton's proportionate share of the of covering the cost has gone up, and that is due to higher enrollment. But that is a very simplistic explanation, and we can pursue more in-depth explanations of that.
Okay. So, we're gonna wait until the 14th for this.
Yes, and we do have and you'll get the entire budget for that.
Okay. Does that also mean we're waiting on discussion of possible Proposition 2.5 override for the school increase, or can we discuss that if we know the total dollar amount of the increase?
Yeah, I have a number of things to say about that.
Okay.
Yeah. First, an increase isn't actually for any specific item. Because the school increase is a large part of the town's operating budget, I had thought of, if we were to consider it, having that be one of the talking points, obviously insurance would be another one, and health coverage. I propose this largely as a discussion point to let people know that at some time in the future, maybe not this year, maybe next year, or maybe not. I know that the salary increases will not be nearly as much next year for FY27 because of the way the union contracts are structured. Though you might have some non-union salary increases to include based on the upcoming wage and classification study if that passes. I didn't want to bring it up just because it's something that people often think, oh, well, we can't possibly do that. That's raising our taxes permanently. And I think that, I personally think that the salaries we have in town are more than fair for the town. And I think I would advocate for non-union staff increases next year as well. We are in the process of bringing the unionized staff up to the comparable starting pay of towns around us, but we're not finished with that job either. I think we've got good agreements, and also we're headed towards less of a impact on our excess levy capacity than I originally thought we might be. I originally had quite a sharp reaction to some numbers that, when adjusted, I'm much more comfortable with. I also know that every year, of course, the levy limit goes up 2.5%, plus usually some small amount of new growth we have. So, and that represents probably about $400,000 in excess levy capacity. So we're starting off probably with somewhere around 300,000. When we get that extra 400,000, we'll be at 700,000, which is where we are now. And again, there aren't these sort of bumps that come from the union negotiations happening next year. All three unions, I think maybe probably all four, next year have an increase of just one step, 3.785%. So that's considerably lower than this year, when they're trying to catch up a little bit, not enough, and then the police start off with a bigger bump in the beginning and then have single-step increases. The other unions, 2 steps the first year, 1 step the second year, 2 steps the third year. And as the select board agreed, well, we'll come to that later in the agenda. So it's partly put it out there just because it's often considered something of a third rail. I don't think that it's necessary at this time, but I did clarify that you don't need to bump up against the excess levy capacity to have an override vote. So I would still recommend considering, as we go forward, if trends aren't in the right direction, bumping it up 200,000, something like that, something to give a little bit of leeway so that it doesn't have to be decided in a way that forces the town to choose between an override and cutting the operating budget. I'd rather have some opportunity to consider an override because we know that these prices are going up faster than Proposition 2.5 is. And some of it's salaries, some of it's insurance, some of it's health insurance, and some of it's the schools, the things that we cannot control. I think it would be dangerous to try to balance the budget on the backs of the town staff. I will advocate for the town staff and say they are not being overpaid.
No, I think our police and our highway, their average wages are far below a lot of other towns in the area.
So the police will be catching up their first year. Highway will not be catching up through this entire contract. Dispatch will not be catching up throughout this contract. But they're making a serious stride towards catching up. So again, I like a longer term, steady increase. But that's still a steady increase, and it's an increase of greater than 2.5%. We don't have any new growth because we don't have any commercial, base here. We don't have a substantial commercial base here. We don't have restaurants, as many restaurants and as many hotels as other towns that get money from the surcharge that can be made on those kinds of businesses. So I did want to bring it up just to maybe take some of the sting away when eventually it has to be done. It doesn't have to be a large amount. And you don't have to wait until it's an emergency. So I think those were the 2 points that I really wanted to make.
Okay.
What's the impact?
And I'm fine with that. And we don't have an emergency this year, which is great. About a month ago, I wasn't so sure.
Tom, Robert asked what the impact would be.
What's the impact for this year, short term on taxes, or next year on the taxes? What's that impact on the taxpayer if we do a Proposition 2.5?
There wouldn't be any impact this year. It would just allow for the budget to rise more next year than it could rise this year. So so we're going from about, let's call it 750,000 to 300,000, I would say. So that's $450,000 we're losing in excess levy capacity. If we did the same thing next year, which I'm not at all sure we're going to do, especially because we're getting 400,000 added because of Proposition 2.5. But if that weren't true, and we were going to go over our excess levy capacity, then we would, if we have 300 and we need 450, we would have to either have an override for 150,000, or we would have to cut $150,000 out of the town budget. And I would not say we are overstaffed, and I would not say we are overpaid.
But isn't there another alternative? And we get in that position where for $150, we need another $150,000, and we can use the free cash, which we seem to have an ample amount of based on yesterday's figures, $2.5 million.
It is possible to do that, but I would caution against it for this reason. If your budget goes up one year, especially if it's based on external things that you don't have any control over, but just even if it goes up, and you use free cash to meet that, then the following year, it will also go up. So you either use more free cash to meet that as well, or you have to make up the difference of both the first year's increase and the second year's increase, the second year. So it feels good the first year, but the second year you get walloped.
Well, possibly, but I think it's time we're at the position where we're approaching a potential override, which is a very nasty word in this community.
Well, I'm trying to make it less
Again, I know you are.
with this discussion.
But it's time, you saw the figures yesterday, or the day before, on the free cash. I think it's almost twice as much as we got the year before. We had $2.5 million in free cash. I think it's time to utilize some of it.
We got $2 million this year. We're getting 2.4 for next year.
Yeah. We get $2 million in this fiscal year.
Yeah.
Next fiscal year, we'll have 2.5 or 2.4 right now. I just think that it's time for us to start utilizing more of it. Traditionally, you use like a couple $100,000 to deflate the potential tax increase, right?
The reason we do that is to pay is to put money aside in case we don't get the regional dispatch grant. And we always have gotten the regional dispatch grant.
It's a couple $100,000, but we're getting $2.4 million. I think we can afford to extend some of that towards, against the tax rate as our annual figure at the town meeting. I said this before too.
Well,
It's a lot of money, Don, just let's sit right around waiting for it. This might happen, that might happen. Well, it's happening right now.
What does our town accountant feel? What does she feel about this?
well, to go over the plans for this year's free cash, we're putting money into 3 stabilization funds and OPEB. And
I thought we were done with all that.
and we need to keep on top of,
Can we talk about that real quick, Tom?
I'm sorry,
Can we talk about OPEB real quick?
Yeah.
When we had the discussion with DOR, or whoever who we talked to like 2 years ago, very few towns and cities in the state have as much money, put as much money as we have into that. Very few. I think it's less, maybe a handful throughout the whole state.
we're fully funded, and it will help our credit rating when we borrow for any major expense.
But we don't have to make a major payment on the debt as we had to for recent years. We're free of the debt.
Our financial advisors that we funded, both Don and I agreed not to take our financial advisor's advice, which is to fund it at 120% of its liability. We both agree that 110% is sufficient. That's meant to be able to absorb a correction in the stock market. Any drop over 10% is going to cause many more problems than we can solve by keeping it funded at 120%.
Yeah, I don't want to debate about it. I think it's,
So-
at this point in the juncture, we are facing this somewhat of a crisis. We have to explore all options and all available funds to address the tax increase.
But because it's part of the operating budget, it will come back to bite you. If it were a one-time expense, that would be true. But otherwise, it'll just have to be made up in future years. Now, if I can just continue with the plans for free cash now, we're going from, we have maybe, seven or 800,000 for the funds, $200,000 to reduce the tax rate in case we don't get the regional dispatch grant. So that brings us up to spending over $1 million of that free cash. One other possibility is not to borrow for the highway truck, but to propose spending free cash on that.
Well, that's
Not just borrowing funds.
That's the exact same thing. We're using it for an item that's been proposed for purchasing with free cash. That's the same thing as using free cash to depress the operating budget. Yeah, I go, if you want to spend on the truck, I'm all for it.
It's not the truck is not in the operating budget.
No, it's in as a capital expenditure, right, I understand this.
So that brings us up to at least 1.5, maybe 1.6 or even 1.7 million dollars spending on free cash out of the 2.4, which leaves $700,000 for next year, which is a good amount to reserve for emergencies. So that would be my recommendation on how to deal with with more free cash than we usually get, is to spend it on our capital, our major capital item.
We're talking the same thing, and I agree with you. Thank you for explaining that to me.
Okay, good.
What does our accountant of 30 years experience say about the 2.5 proposition? Is that a good thing for us to do right now, or is not?
She doesn't think it's necessary.
Okay.
And again, the only reason that I would suggest it is so that we were not put in a position of being forced to choose between cutting the town operating budget and having an override. That's an uncomfortable position to be in. But again, she doesn't think it's necessary now. We'll probably end up with the same amount of excess levy capacity as we have now after we get our new 2.5%. So I also don't see the need to do it now. I just want to make sure you're aware that it's an option to have an override when you don't need one, if you see one coming in the future and you believe that the town operating budget is reasonable. The reason not to do it is because you don't think we need to be spending all the money we're spending, and you do want to force that choice between an override and cutting the budget.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
All right, number 10, sign the highway and communication contracts. I also have the police union here too, but we can we sign it? It's not on the agenda.
I'm sorry?
Can we sign the police contracts, officers? It's not on the agenda.
Oh, that's an addendum. I don't know whether we covered that in executive session or not. I think I mentioned it. Happy to do it later. There's no.
Let's wait till the next
Yeah,
meeting and
that's-
do that. I feel more comfortable.
There's no
Old
precedent.
Buckford just put that one.
No,
That's
the highway.
the body cam stipend.
Go ahead and here.
Sorry?
So, talking about the highway, if anybody was here, do they have to sign it?
It's already signed.
They've already
Okay. Yeah, good, put them sign it.
And that was according to the instructions that I was given by the board in the last executive session.
The dispatchers hasn't been signed, but the highway has.
Oh, right, the dispatch we just wrapped up today.
So should we wait for them to sign it, then we'll sign it, or?
It's fine if it gets signed,
Okay.
if you guys sign it now.
Okay, first one is the dispatchers. Okay. Do you need a motion to sign?
Yeah, I think.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we execute the contract with the Dalton Dispatchers Association.
Second?
Great.
Okay, motion been made second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, sign away, gentlemen. Okay. And the highway.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we execute the agreement with the Highway Department.
Second.
The motion been made second. Is there any further discussion?
What?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Gentlemen. Okay. Number 11, items not anticipated 48 hours before the meeting. You got one?
I have something, it's not going to call for deliberation or a vote, but I have worked on, well, that's not it. Maybe I'll just tell you about it. I have worked on, let's do that. There's been an unwritten policy and an agreement between the police department and the Board of Health regarding noise complaints. And that is that the police cover disturbances of the peace, meaning residential. Some of my neighbors have 2 out of party going on, kind of complaints about noise. There's another kind of complaint about noise, which was apparently why this bylaw was written, which is commercial, industrial, manufacturing noise. And the proposed bylaw would change the current bylaws to clarify that it's the Board of Health that's responsible for the commercial and industrial noise complaints, and the police department for residential noise complaints.
Makes a lot of sense.
And I've been in the middle between the 2 departments for quite some time now. And I have checked with Chief Stroud, and this resolution is acceptable to her. And I hope to have a copy of it for you, but it's just something to add to the town meeting warrant. There's a change in that bylaw to codify an existing policy that is actually not how the bylaw is written. So I got okay today from the chief regarding that, and
Makes perfect sense.
I'll insert it in the warrant for your, I'll send it along, and then, so if you have any comments on it,
Okay.
you can make them.
So my one question about that is, and I talked to Chief Stroud about this, is, so are we now gonna have our Department of Health representative? And this is all over one commercial lot that's been having all the calls come in. Are we gonna have them on full-time, 24-hour notice that when a commercial operator runs over their stop time and they're still running and people call in that there's still noise coming from the lot, are we calling in our health department to come take care of that? Are they now gonna be on a 24-hour service where now our health department has to respond to a noise complaint?
It is not outside of the realm of possibility, but the much more probable response would be to call the zoning enforcement officer, because any noise in those hours would be a violation of the special permit.
And after 5 o'clock, he does not return calls to the next day. That's what this problem has been. I know where this is coming from. And you're putting a burden on the Department of Health that she has to be, or they have to be, whoever it is, has to be on call 24/7, because some people do not like the hours restricted by that. So, and the other problem with that is when someone has a noise complaint, do you think they dial 911 or do they dial Dalton Department of Health? Who's going to be fielding the call to begin with?
So in answer to your first question, that's the way the bylaw is currently written.
I know.
And the Board of Health has proposed the changes that I'm bringing forward. In answer to your second question, if there is a noise complaint which is residential, most people would call the police if there was a big party next door and they were calling to complain about it.
But not 911, the police direct line, the 684.
Or they can call whichever
I
line
suppose they could, but
if they want. It's
just hardly seems to rise to the level of emergency, but.
no, but the point is that the call will be routed to the police for that kind of thing. So this is leaving the bylaw as written, as proposed by the Board of Health, except clarifying that it is not meant to be applied to residential noise complaints.
Why isn't the enforcement officer returning calls after 5?
That is
That's troublesome.
well beyond, I think, my item not anticipated.
Yeah.
I'm not
Well,
entirely sure that it's true. I do know that our zoning enforcement officer is not a full-time employee and that he does things according to his availability. This is the first time I've heard that allegation. I was
For the record, he does return the phone calls. For the record, he does return the phone calls, but it's most generally the next, it's always the
I
next
would
day.
prefer to have heard the complaint in private.
Okay, let's talk about it later.
Well, it seems that this, if it's a business type operation, I think I know who you're alluding to.
We all
Okay.
have.
We should move on, gentlemen,
Yes.
please.
Again, just
Very much.
not for discussion, this is a notification regarding a specific proposal which has been agreed to by all concerned parties.
Right, anything else?
Thank you.
I agree. Can we get a copy of that in our mailbox?
You have not, but we.
No, can we?
Yes,
Okay.
I will get to you.
Whatever, it's right. That, no.
Anything else?
It's ready, I thought I'd printed it out today, but I printed it out the bylaw instead.
Anything else, Tom, on that?
No,
Okay, I have one. Craig Wilbur contacted me today, and he wants to make sure we have the joint meeting with the Police Advisory Building Committee on 4/9 at 5 o'clock at Wacoma. Can everybody make that?
Wait a minute, what was it again, Bob?
4/9,
We're not, it's just, what,
April
5
9th,
o'clock.
Saturday, right?
Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday.
Oh.
Yeah, but Wacoma, it's gonna be in Wacoma
It's going to what, high school?
High School, yeah.
Kind of strange, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's what he said.
I don't know, I suppose.
Yep. It's a Wednesday, yeah, 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock, now.
Okay. Anything else?
Yes, as a reminder, we were going to discuss topics on October 9th specific to the joint select board and public safety meeting, and the board of health meeting. That's why that meeting is taking place at Wacoma.
Okay.
Makes sense.
So there was the concern that we won't be able to be here because of the board of health meeting. I think that was actually a question involved in there.
Okay, we'll just go to Wacoma, so. All right, always want to go back to high school. Okay, okay.
Tom, Berkshire Gas is on Orchard Road today, marking stuff off. We're still a go for that, for this week. So.
I'm sorry, can you?
Orchard Road, Berkshire Gas is up there today, marking out the road and everything. We're still a go with that,
Yeah,
the project? Okay.
yeah, they should be laying out the beginnings of the wetlands, protection stuff on Wednesday.
Thank you.
Okay,
We promised the people in that area that we would have this construction starting on or before April 1st.
It's gonna be April 2nd. Sorry.
Well, it's already started, if they're marking out the gas lines.
Well, yeah.
So we better commit that.
okay. Remarks of the select board, anybody? Okay, leads us to our announcements. Town is seeking volunteers, including for its cultural council, responsible for reviewing arts and cultural grant proposals and improving projects. If you're interested in being on Dalton Housing Authority, please contact Sue Gregory at 684-2493. For other volunteer opportunities, please visit town websites. Dalton Police Department is reminding the citizens of Dalton the winter parking ban, which is suspended in effect until April 15th between the hours of 1 a.m. and 6 a.m. During this time, there will be no parking allowed on the streets. Town of Dalton currently has the following employment opportunities. Town manager, administrative assistant for the senior center, new department assistant, assessors clerk, DPW seasonal laborers. Please visit the town website or contact the town manager's office for more information. Dalton's official meeting postings, agendas, and minutes can be viewed at mygovernment.org/01226. The next meeting of the select board meeting is scheduled to take place on Monday, April 14th, 2025 at 7 p.m. at the senior center with an option for remote participation.
We'll do adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.